can you tell me a little bit about how you got started training and how long you've been training for?
Yeah, so I've been training for 10 years. I'm 25. I started training at 15. How it kind of started is I was doing recreational sports, your basic basketball, football, baseball, things like that. And I stopped doing that just right before high school and was looking for some hobby to kind of take up my time. My dad and I have always sat down and watched the UFC and been interested in combat sports in general. So I looked up a gym, just jiu-jitsu near me, and one day just walked in and tried a free class at this local Gracie Baja school. And ever since that day, kind of just have been sticking with it and fell in love with it. Moved on, did it at other spots when I moved for college, and then now moved back to Arlington, Texas area, and continue to do it here.
When you first, walked into that gym, like, how did you feel? Were you nervous, excited?
I was so young, and I think it's hard to remember exactly. I think that's one of the only kind of regrets I have of doing it so young in a sense is because when you're like an adult, you can kind of remember exactly what that felt like. I can't remember everything it felt like. The only thing I did remember is everyone was super welcoming, super kind. And then I've told the story on other interviews as well, but I do remember there was this one girl there. She was a female, probably in her 20s, and her name was Miranda, and she beat the crap out of me. I mean, it was so bad, and I remember thinking that day, like she was a third stripe white belt, so a three-stripe white belt, and I used to think like, oh my God, if I can just make it to three-stripe white belt, I'm gonna know so much. Like I'm gonna be a wizard, because it felt like she could just do whatever, and there was nothing I could do. I was just defenseless. So I think that really like piqued my curiosity to say, wow, I gotta learn this. I gotta figure out how these people are so good at just doing whatever they want because they're technical.
Right, I'm sure. So right now, do you have any coaches or mentors that have inspired you through your journey?
Yeah, so I've had my second coach was Gene DeLua Cartagena, and I think he kind of shifted my mindset a lot. I trained with him when I moved for college in New Braunfels, Texas, and when I was a purple belt at the time, but I hadn't really not competed, but maybe 3 or 4 times max. And he was an active competitor, and I remember walking in the first day, and they were training for a competition as a team, and I was never used to that. Like my first gym, we never really trained for competitions like that. And so I was like, wow, this is completely different. Like, this is something I really want to do. So I think he's inspired me because he kind of changed my whole framework and made me like the competitor in the way, like the sense of I want to compete, giving me that inspiration to compete. And then my coach now, Coach Alvarez, he keeps continuing to lead me and give me good advice. He's competed all around the world and things like that. I looked up to some athletes for sure. Back in the day when I was training, I looked up to Gianni Grippo. I looked up to, what was it, Junio Casio. It was actually ironic. I got to do a seminar with him, and then a couple years later, I competed against him. So it was really, really cool to kind of get to where they say, your idols become your rivals and stuff. So at black belt, it's really been fun to enjoy that experience of going against the guys that blue belt chase was like, wow, I really wish I could compete against them.
Yeah, I bet. That's probably a
Yeah,
really good full circle for you.
yeah, for sure.
So, what piece of advice would you give someone who's looking to compete at a higher level?
Train as much as you can. Train, train, train. That's the it's simple, but train, study. I think that's a thing that we neglect a lot for jiu-jitsu guys is we're kind of brunts. We kind of just go in there and just train, and we think if we can just do hard 7 minute rounds and we're going to be ready. I think studying and taking the time to drill things and really analyze what you're doing. I think that's the biggest advice. If you're going to compete at a high level, it's realizing your mistakes, whether you win or you lose. I always try to watch my matches back. And, it can at times be my harshest critic, but really just looking at exactly what I did wrong, exactly what I did right, and trying to fix those things. Just continuously evolving would be my advice.
So, you mentioned that, part of your studying is actually watching your match back. Is there anything else you do to study?
Yeah, of course. I try to stay up on like the scene and upcoming matches, and I try to be a fan as much as I am an athlete, and watch the matches that are coming up, the big matches. As far as that, yeah, I just study certain people. If I find someone that I think has a similar game as I do, I'll try to study their matches and see, mimic some of their styles and try to create like a blend of different athletes along with my own matches and correcting it.
That's smart. It's a good idea.
Yeah.
So what does your daily training routine look like to prepare for the upcoming CSR Invitational in Houston?
Yeah, super excited about that. That is a big bracket. I remember when we were first messaging, I was like, hey, it's going to be 16 people for like, what's the payout? And I remember you or whoever is in charge of the count told me, we'll get 16 people. Don't worry. And I was like, okay. And it has shown up. It is 16 people and it is a good bracket. So I'm excited about that. I've been training. I mean, I train twice a day, most days, if I can. My work is, I work from home. I work in logistics. So super blessed that I can kind of modify my work schedule to fit my training. A lot of times you'll see me at a 6 a.m. class if I'm competing, and then I drop in at the night class as well and do drilling sessions. So yeah, that's what's been looking like. Just a lot of training, a lot of drilling, and a ton of studying.
What are your expectations for the upcoming event?
I'm excited. Being the fact that I've never really done the event, I have little expectations on exactly what's going to happen because I don't know. But it looks like a really good card. There's a lot of great athletes that have done the past events for you guys. And I watched a couple videos from the past event, and it looks really well ran, really organized. So super excited to go to Houston and compete for you guys.
Well, that's good to hear. Thank you. And so where can someone buy tickets to the event?
I'm sorry, say again?
Where can someone buy tickets for the event if they wanted to show up in person?
Yeah, so you should be able to show up at the door and buy tickets. I believe you guys will have tickets also at the door, correct? And then you can also hit me up for tickets. I have a few left that I could sell to you. So
Perfect. So for anyone who has not yet decided to come out to the event, can you give them one last reason to come and support you and the other competitors?
yeah, I would say just come out. We have a lot of local talent, but I've also been looking at the bracket, and we have a ton of people coming from out of Texas. So, if we have guys flying in for this bracket, then it's definitely something you want to be a part of, especially if you're in the Houston area. You might as well, go ahead and check that day off on your calendar and just come out and support the athletes. We don't get a lot of support like the mainstream competitions, or the mainstream sports. So if you can, support your fellow athletes in Houston, and of course the ones coming from out of town. They're flying in for a reason. This event's the event to be at that weekend.
Well, thank you for your time. But before we do go, I did want to mention that, if you can't come out in person to Houston, that the Combat Sports Report YouTube channel will stream it live on the day of. So just head over to the channel on February 22nd, tune in, and you won't want to miss it. You're right.
Perfect.